Welcome, Sega fans, to the Sega Guys podcast, the podcast that is filled with untapped potential. I'm Dan the Mega Driver, and with me is my co-host, Tommy Vassetti, to my Doom guy. It's James the Sagaaholic. Mate, how you doing?
Look, Sonny, I'll get you money. It's my money, Tommy. Very good, mate. I'm very good. How's yourself?
Yeah, good, mate. You know, if Tommy Vassetti had the Doom guy with him, then he could have taken over Vice City a lot quicker, couldn't he?
Aye, well, that's true, eh? But a nice hint at what we're going to talk about today. It's certainly been a hell of a week for the Dreamcast.
A hell of a week for gaming in general. I know we like to timestamp these, but Nintendo Switch announcements today. Switch 2. £75 games, mate. Not $90 in the US. I don't think the unit, 400 quid, it was that bad, but Jesus, 90 quid for a copy of Mario Kart. Fucking Mario Kart.
If you adjust it for inflation, it's actually not that different.
It makes me laugh. It's like these people putting pictures of like Toys R Us catalogs saying, but don't you see, games are much more cheaper now than you can pay like 90 quid for a SNES game and $70 for an N64 game. It's like, yeah, it's still Nintendo being shit. you know, Saturn and PlayStation games were less than £45. It was only Nintendo that was doing that. So, oh mate, so it's I looked at it, just like hard pass for me. Just like state of gaming when it's 75 quid for a copy of Mario Kart. I know you get one bundle.
And then, like, the one thing that was the most appealing about the Switch, the fact that, whenever I set up my wee girls at Christmas, it was slap a cartridge in and go. Old school gaming, instantaneous. And now they've got these game card things that not every game will use them, apparently, but like it's on an ad hoc kind of game by game basis where the card will initiate a digital download and it has to be in the machine for the download to work, apparently. And I'm like, what is it with these companies? They win a generation and then they move to the next one and then they just fuck it up. Yeah. It's like they just decide, see everything that works. Like, it looked, for all intents and purposes, whenever we've seen the leaks and then the kind of official announcement a couple of weeks ago where they announced it was real. And you look at it, and you go, hey, okay, it's a Switch. You've made it bigger. Hall sensors on the sticks. Stick drift is gone. Looks good. Okay, you're just repeating what's come before. What can go wrong? Well, wait there, Bob. Okay, what's happened? Nah, the game card thing, I'm like, you just know it's going to be first-party games that are going to be riddled with those, don't you? It's like... just why do they have to go and screw things up, man? Just repeat what you did before and make it more powerful. Like, the people will flock to it. You've got a successful business model there. It's just greed. You know what I mean? It's just... It is. It's mad. It's... mate, honestly, no wonder we do this.
Exactly. If no wonder we revert back to the true gaming champions, and that is Sega. They didn't win the console wars, mate. They won our hearts. And they still do today.
in there to this day.
Because
the soul still burns.
Yes, indeed. I mean, yes, it's been a busy week for the channel. Obviously, we had 3 videos in 3 days. And driven by pretty much today's topic, and that is, the homebrew scene on the Dreamcast and how it's evolved. And I think it's something that we've talked about before, mate. It's the untapped potential of the Sega Dreamcast. And, there's a few interesting things that I think we'll touch on, but it feels like the console is finally coming of age in the homebrew community, and for a system whose life was so short lived, we're finally seeing what it was truly capable of.
Aye, and it's like it's seeing these games that we were told couldn't be done. That, and in the case of Grand Theft Auto 3, and obviously Vice City. It was like we were told these games were too big, and the DVD was required for the streaming of these massive cities and the radio stations with real music and all these visual effects like fog and bloom and real-time reflections and it couldn't be done and all that on Dreamcast. And then, look, they've only gone and done it,
Yeah.
So coming of age is the right word, mate. I mean, I think it's something we spoke about on here quite often, is that we looked at the indie scene, and as great as it was to see brand new Dreamcast games coming out, it was great to see people trying to keep the system relevant and alive by bringing out brand new sealed retail case style indie games, but you know they never quite hit the spot. Development tools weren't quite there, and the end results were always the words I used, and controversially so. And I think it was the Radio Sega Discord at the time. I think I said it. Was that they were an insult to the Dreamcast, and I stand by that. Eh, you know, I get that this is people have put a lot of hard work into it, but stuff like Intrepid Izzy and Super Alice Sisters and things like that are just not what the Dreamcast was about. Cast your mind back to when Dreamcast was announced. This was every single article was Model 3 is coming home. It was power. And that aspect gets lost today because of the years that have passed, the technology that's come since. But this machine was an absolute beast when it came out. Like the jump from PS1 and Saturn to Dreamcast was absolutely insane. Like jaggies were gone, pixels were gone, textures were so detailed that the picture you were getting was such a higher resolution than what you were used to. Like you go from Metal Gear Solid on PS1 to Shenmue, or even Soul Calibur on Dreamcast. You go from Solid Snake having two dots and a couple of squiggly lines for a face to actual expressions. It was a monumental leap, and that was forgotten. I think that this machine, while it is beloved in the indie scene, I think you've got to remember what it was when it came out. It was an absolute powerhouse. And thankfully now, because of the advancements we're seeing, especially in Callisto OS, the work that's been done to bring that up to speed by likes of Falco Gurgis, now we're seeing the fruits of that labour. And it's insane, mate. And this is just the beginning. Where are they going to go with this stuff? That's the exciting thing.
Yeah, I completely agree, mate. It's extremely exciting where it could go. I think it is interesting to go back and kind of trace back the steps of Dreamcast Homebrew. I think sometimes it's kind of a fine line between where you say what's homebrew and what's indie, because obviously when Dreamcast, as you say, when it landed, it was superior to Model 3. It was the source of the most powerful arcade hardware on the planet at the time, only surpassed later on by the PS2. And it was such a monumental console release that you know the games were just so far beyond, like you were saying, mate. They were so far beyond what was the benchmark for the time. You look at the N64 that came out, what 2 years before in the West. Mario 64. You compare visually, you compare Sonic to Mario 64. It's night and day. You didn't have any, for all its issues, you didn't have anything like Sega Rally 2 on any other system, that level of detail, of clarity, so it really was this powerhouse console when it first released. And I think a bit of that is lost because it very quickly became a bit of a homebrew darling. You know, very early on, I remember playing homebrew games on Dreamcast. Maybe not necessarily purely games, but we started getting stuff like the Beats of Rage like games. We started getting emulators on there. So you'd get. I remember having SNES and Mega Drive emulators. They didn't run brilliantly, but it was pretty cool. And people were already, even in those early days, they were thinking about. We did kind of have a burgeoning homebrew scene to a degree, indie scene, I should say, because you had titles like Last Hope that were released unofficially on the platform. And I think that's one of the very first ones. But even then, you look back at that original homebrew stuff, and it was very much still. I don't want to say basic because we both know that this is well beyond anything that we could do.
Aye.
Incredibly talented people have been behind this, but it feels like I think even back then, you look at the emulators and the performance and stuff, and you look at the kind of Sega Smash Pack from Sega. wasn't perfect, but then those games performed a little bit better. And you can think, it felt like certain secret source was still locked away from those homebrew devs, didn't it? And I think it's now we're kind of rediscovering it a little bit. Or I say we, you know, people like Falco and J.M. Martins are discovering it and making incredible things as a result.
Aye, and again, it's as I said, it's all down to the tools, mate. It's like not everybody who was trying to make games for this had access to those giant, with the big PC tower style Dreamcast dev kits. One of which I'm still maintaining until my last breath is locked away somewhere with a build of VF4 on it. But hopefully someone finds it. I'm still convinced it was getting ported to Dreamcast and cancelled and locked away. But aye, it's the homebrew scene stuff. I mean, I never really, in terms of whenever Dreamcast was like in its kind of dying days and the kind of years after it, I wasn't aware of any kind of homebrew stuff in that regard. It wasn't until kind of coming into the community and obviously hooking up with yourself and kind of starting the podcast and stuff that you become aware of what's out there. So the Beats of Rage stuff, which I think has been kind of done to death, there's like every I don't know, TV show or cartoon has had some kind of like there's a Simpsons version and there's a Turtles version.
There's a
Turtles
King of Fighters version.
Aye, the Turtles version looks quite good, right enough. That actually would pass for a legit Turtles arcade game. But
Was that the one that very recently was almost a port of Shredder's Revenge?
close to
So,
was that one of Ian Michael's compilations? I think it had like SNES games and Game Boy games and all that on it as well. Was it the
oh,
Cowabunga
it might have been, yeah.
collection? Aye. And Ian does a lot with emulators. We've seen that already with Shinobi and Golden Axe. I need to put his Golden Axe on my Dreamcast, actually. I've not put that over yet and played that. That's another thing as well that you see. It's like, again, we're talking about people saying, that these games were, they can't be done. But you also see people saying, like, why are they doing this? Or why would you want to play that? Like, Jason, he's on quite a few Dreamcast, like, kind of Facebook groups. I don't go near them, right? Just hellholes, man. See Facebook and stuff like that. No. But he put up screenshots on the WhatsApp chat, and it was people replying. He put the video up, the link up for the GTA video that I did yesterday. It was one guy replying, going, "Why would anyone want to play this? It won't have all the radio stations and it won't have all of the map." And I'm like, mate, you're commenting without even having played the fucking thing. It's like, no, it does evolve the map. And it turned out after speaking to Falco that the way that I was running the game, he told me the way to run it optimally. GTA 3 anyway, he says to make sure you enable BPP 24 or 24 BPP. Keep the frame limiter on and turn on the ×2 anti-aliasing before you start the game. And I couldn't find the 24 BPP setting. Turns out to get that, you set it to it's on the resolution. It's 640 times 480 times 24. The default is times 16. So he says that that's basically, his words were, it's superior graphical fidelity for free. So the for free in his wording and context is without taxing the system any. You're getting this no impact at all. He said that the ×2 anti-aliasing is almost always for free, except for scenes where there's heavy transparency, such as rain and fog, which can cause some dips, but they are still working to optimize that kind of stuff. So I've not actually tried the 24 BPP setting yet. I need to go and try that and see what that's like as well, because he said that you do notice it. So I'll need to try that out at some point as well. But I just, people, again, they come up with these things and they go, why are they doing this? Why would anyone want to play these? And I'm like, you missed the point. It's like, for these guys, there's like a lot of kind of personal pride as well. You take a look at like J.N. Martin, for example, like J.N. Martin does these projects unashamedly. He admits this publicly. Like, he doesn't suffer fools. Like, he will rip a project off the face of the internet. Like, if it gets leaked out or if something happens, like he took the Wipeout Bill Spiney was sharing them publicly. He took them down because someone on Dreamcast Talk had shared the link to a CDI, so he took them down and put new links up, like But these people are making these things out of passion in their own time, and we should be thankful for that, not chastising them or getting comments and going, well, if it was me doing this, what I would add. See if you would add something, then go and do it. Don't go in comments going, well, actually, if it was me, but it's no you. You know what I mean? So shut up. It's like, but no, there's some proper killjoys out there when it comes to the homebrew stuff. You've got to remember that these guys are doing this out of passion. We're getting this stuff for free. You know what I mean? It's insane. So just a bit of respect. Slight tangent in my kind of point there, but
Quite funny, isn't it? Because you'll get someone who'll come in, click on the video, and then click on the comment and write out a comment going, I don't understand why someone would spend time doing this. It's like, well, why did you decide to click on this video and type out this comment? I mean, that's so much more.
why did you decide to just reply to a thumbnail and not even watch the video? That's the question.
They've taken time and energy to write something negative about something that they don't consume or understand. And is that a worthwhile use of that individual's time? I don't know, but
it's engagement, mate. We don't care. It's engagement.
Yeah, where it is, when it comes to YouTube, if we're making you angry, comment below. But it's amazing how far we've come, mate. You do wonder what sort of applications it could have in the future. Because obviously, when we talk about Intrepidity, stuff like Xenocrisis, Driving Strikers, they were kind of multi-format ports of existing games. So I think those three you can buy those on Steam, I think.
Shadow Gangs as well.
Shadow Gangs is another one, yeah. So I mean, they're good games that you can buy. Obviously, this isn't going to apply to anything like Doom 64 or Grand Theft Auto or Wipeout, those three. But, conceivably, could this lead to maybe some, fully polygonal games in that similar vein being retail games? Wave do produce they publish a number of these games. Be nice to see some sort of, see this sort of effort that we're seeing from, the likes of Falco and everyone realized in kind of a production case that's actually sold, and it'd be good for those guys to get something out of it. But yeah, I do wonder what the future could hold, because as I say, on the indie side, we have seen those games go out and get published and be sold, and wonder if could this be the start of some more advanced retail Dreamcast games in its kind of second lease of life?
I would like to think that it would, the Callisto OS, it would perhaps open doors to more brand new original Dreamcast games that are closer to the retail games that we've seen before. Like, obviously, GTA 3 and Vice City are kind of recompiled PC versions, essentially. So Doom 64, again, GN Martin's kind of reverse engineered the Nintendo 64 version. And in the case of Wipeout, it was because of the source code that was leaked. So Wipeout Rewrite, as the project is called, that's been on, there was an attempt to bring it onto Dreamcast in 2023. Mr. Neo 24 tried to do it. Kind of textures missing in audio, kind of tracks not there, but they tried to do it. Wipeout Rewrite's also been on the Amiga as well years ago, or recently, about a year ago. So it's done the rounds, but the reason why they were able to turn that around so fast is because they have the source code, but it would be amazing to see. I mean, you think about Frogbill, right? So Frogbill's tried to get Metal Gear Solid 2, the tech demo, right, up and running. Now, to do the whole of Metal Gear Solid 2 would be one hell of an undertaking for one guy, but we now have a team, right? Don't put any pressure on them to do Metal Gear Solid 2, right? But the point I'm trying to make is that you look at how much Callisto OS has come on since he done that demo. So what, nips and tucks and tweaks and performance gains are now available that could maybe make that even better, so that's the exciting thing. I know we all kind of sit here and go with what games we'd love to see. We spoke about Outrun 2 or Daytona 2 or Scud Race or VF4 and things like that, and they're all like complete and utter pipe dreams. But who's to say people couldn't, make real, you know, genuine, proper retail era Dreamcast games in 3D? We looked at, what was the one? It was Arcade Racing Legends, right? Oh man, I seen stills of that, and I was like, oh, okay, looks not too bad. You can see it was many, many steps below like a retail game. But you can see what it was trying to do. It was trying to bring in the kind of classic cars, Crazy Taxis, it was Axel's Cab and the Hornet for Daytona and the Stratos and stuff like that. No Stratos, the Delta for Sega Rally. But whenever you seen it running, mate, it was really poor. Like, and the handling just wasn't there at all. The track design was really poor. It was just really bland looking. But now you're thinking, like, what could these guys do now? Like, if the people that made Arcade Racing Legends were clued up on this Callisto OS stuff, like, could they take that back in and ramp it right up another 3, 4, 5 levels to make it look closer to a retail game? I don't know.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, and I think sometimes the challenge is that if I think it was a single developer, wasn't it, who did Racing Legends, and you've got to give them a bit of slack because they're effectively being coder, graphic designer, level designer, track designer, everything all in one. I think the double-edged sword about a lot of this is, the simpler games that came to Dreamcast are, they're indie games elsewhere as well, and they're simple for a reason, because it's less work, and you think the thing that we probably need to reflect for Grand Theft Auto Vice City is that was a hell of a project by effectively a pretty large team of volunteers. Effectively, we had Falco and Skimp, also had Frogball contributing, and Frogball was excellent at kind of showcasing where they were basically, because as you say, they took the PC version, which, because that was the version that RE3, is it RE3, the decompilation of the Grand Theft Auto 3. It's got the Vice City branch, so it covers both games. So obviously it's PC assets originally, and then they had to be taken, and then they were kind of, I think they started converting them into PS2, and then they simplified some of the cars even more, took away some of the vertices, and you wouldn't even notice, Football was saying, yeah, this is the PS2 version, this is the Dreamcast version with 600 less polygons, 30 less vertices or whatever, and you'd be like, well, they look pretty much identical. But the point was they were like a team, and I suppose when you're talking about kind of developing a game that's going to be that advanced and that could sell for retail, I think that probably would require a team to do. But then I suppose if you are, does this open the door for more advanced ports now? So obviously we know that like the games like Intrepid Z, Xenocrisis, Shadow Gangs, etc. Again, they got released on other platforms as well. What about kind of the next stage up from that level of indie game, that level of kind of 3D game? Will we start seeing some games like that on the Dreamcast now?
Hopefully, mate. Hopefully. You've got to think that these guys, now they've cut their teeth on the likes of GTA, GTA 3 and Vice City, that maybe they will turn their attention. Like, you look at guys like Espero as well, who did the Dead or Alive Ultimate mod for DOA 2. You've got Nisan as well, who did the Shenmue quiz game
Yeah.
on Saturn. So these are people who have already dabbled in their own kind of projects. So, who's to say what they'll go on and do? But I think the exciting thing is that, well, like you talked about there, mate, like these games previously have been done by like a single developer or maybe a couple of people, right, or a small team. When you go on the DCA3 website and you look at the size of the team, see the fact that there's so many of them, like they're a bona fide, like there's development teams that are probably making professional retail games that are smaller than this team.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a who's who. And the fact that they've all come together, and they're all putting their own little bits of expertise in, they all know little bits and bobs about different things, and it's a beautiful melting pot of just knowledge, and the excitement is that these guys are capable of going away and doing their own things, but then whenever they come together as a collective, like I feel like they should have like an actual collective name. Like, you know what? The initiative Xbox died in its arse, man. This is a true initiative. Like,
Yeah.
they are showing initiative in the Dreamcast scene. They need a collective name because they are, for all intents and purposes, a bona fide development team.
Yeah.
Because, as I say, what they'll go on and do with their own kind of talents and their own projects, that's exciting. But whenever they come together, what could they do next? What original games could they make?
Yeah, it's very exciting indeed, mate. I think it probably is kind of pulled knowledge and experience over, as we started saying, the Dreamcast started off the homebrew origins of it started, when the Dreamcast was effectively people could show that they could run CDRs on there, they could run homebrew on there. Um, and then when you got from there, then people started loading it up with essentially indie stuff, homebrew stuff from there. Some of it commercial, some of it just pure homebrew. Much like a lot of consoles, really. I've got the soft modded Wii there, soft modded Xbox down there. They all end up going down this route, don't they? But it feels like we're now at this point where we've gone through, and you've got people that have made great games. You've got people that have made great games on Dreamcast. Even though, as we said, we wish that some games pushed the Dreamcast a bit more graphically. It doesn't take away from the fact that they're fantastic pieces of software made by talented people that have effectively all probably done their bit to unlock the puzzle and the potential of the Sega Dreamcast. And you kind of trace that through, the original homebrew stuff. Then you get into kind of recent years, and there was something of an explosion, wasn't there? Because you had the commercial side, the Wave stuff that they were publishing. Then we had that explosion of Atomis Wave ports, didn't we? And that
Oh
felt like a
man,
massive breakthrough, I think.
that was that's terrible. The guy's name I had it in my head there, and this was straight out again. The guy for Dreamcast talk that was behind that, but that was mental. Like they somehow managed to reverse engineer these Atomis Wave games to run perfectly on a GDMU.
Yeah,
It's absolutely crazy. Aye, and look, stuff like Dolphin Blue is brilliant.
yeah,
It's like great. There's loads. I mean, some of the games are a bit kind of iffy. There's the kind of Daytona rip off that's on there. The name escapes me, but
yeah. I
it's
can't remember. I was looking through them earlier, and yeah, I
aye.
know the one you
I
mean
mean,
now.
I've got them all on the. I downloaded the pack and I've got them all on there. Even have artwork for each of them, mate, on my open menu. You know what I mean? So
Nice.
can I not have them looking the part, But no, they're good games, and that's crazy. And you're thinking, could they maybe find a way to get like Naomi 2 stuff? Like, like could you do something? I mean, I don't know, strip bits out or tweak bits or something to I don't know. Obviously, Dreamcast would be lacking the VRAM and physical RAM to run them natively, but you kind of get to the stage now where you're starting to, no pun intended, dream
Yeah.
about, what could come, because the speed that we've got to this stage is what's frightening. Like the Doom 64 port, that kind of we watched that grow, from build to build. Excuse me, and like J.N. Martin, he was never fully satisfied with it. He was always pushing the envelope, wanted to add the bump mapping, the dynamic lighting, 16 light sources on screen, stuff like that, just continually pushing that envelope. You're thinking, right, okay. And then we had the Duke Nukem Atomic Edition as well. We had
Yeah.
that. And then obviously you've had the stuff like the Wipeout and also the Grand Theft Auto stuff. So you're seeing it ramping up. And the thing you were talking about, like GTA Vice City being like a kind of branch off of GTA 3, that's obviously what allowed it to kind of appear so quickly, because like they were working on GTA 3, and I remember people in the comments going, Vice City when? And then like boom, like all of a sudden there it was. And talking to Falco as well the other day, and that's what he was saying. Like they've kind of backported most or a lot of the optimizations from GTA 3 into Vice City, but in terms of like where those projects are, Vice City in terms of optimizations is still way behind GTA 3. GTA 3's further down the road. Um, and Vice City is a bigger game, pushes more polygons. It's a more intense game graphically, but Dreamcast version looks phenomenal. Like, um, my intention whenever they're finished is to basically do a three-way comparison between Dreamcast, Xbox, and PS2, and do digital foundry style swipe overs between different versions. Um, because I think the Dreamcast version will fool a lot of people, whenever they are done. And there's still a little bit of kind of cynicism as well. I think that, or it's as good as it's ever going to get. You look at what GTA 3 is like now compared to 3 months ago. Like I was sending you kind of comparison photographs from that build and this one, like the lighting, the texture work, it's night and day. It's gone from looking like a very basic PC accelerated, like, remember whenever you first got like a 3D card in the PC and you turned on the 3D options and it was on
Yeah.
like low settings
Put on
and
your Voodoo
everything.
too.
Mate, that's exactly what it looked like, a Voodoo 2 version. Like the characters, they looked like they were floating a bit, the shadows weren't quite there, textures were a bit kind of muddied and warped, and like the lighting looked a bit off. It looked almost too bright, like it was on like a set almost. Like, and then now you look at it and it's dark and it's moody and it just looks like a dirty, grungy, crime riddled city ready to eat you up and spit you back out, mate. So the optimizations will come. Um, as I say, and I spoke to Falco, he said about the frame limiter. Sorry to kind of go back to that, but GTA 3 and Vice City, he said, are hard coded to cap at 30. They don't like going above 30. So, but they've added the frame limiter, you can turn it off and it'll try and go above it and it'll try and go to 60, but it fucks up the physics. So, like, you can see cars flying up there and just not coming back. Like, you'll just see some absolutely crazy stuff going on with the physics. So, it's not recommended to turn it off. And it can also add some kind of really wild fluctuations, which doesn't makes the performance look as worse than it really is. So, aye,
It's all about that frame pacing, mate. But
that's it. That's it.
yeah, I mean, the interesting thing about that is, yeah, it's funny that they both come out in beta. When obviously Grand Theft Auto 3 is obviously, as you say, a lot further along because ultimately Vice City benefits from a lot of the engine improvements that we've had for Grand Theft Auto 3 on Dreamcast. Because the thing that struck me about the Dreamcast version of GTA 3 originally is I didn't think it looks bad. I thought it looked great for what it was at the time. I think it probably suffered by comparison to the PS2 version in the same way that the Xbox version does, because the PS2, and that's what I found fascinating about these beta versions because the PS2 is a very strange machine. It's incredibly strange. I think it's got something like a 1 gigabyte bus in terms of the way that it can pump, data to and from the emotion engine to the graphics synthesizer and all that sort of stuff is insane. Even though those individual components aren't they aren't as powerful as say the GameCube or the Xbox, it could do unique, strange things that a few others could. Some of the effects that you get in Grand Theft Auto 3, is one of them. The Xbox port never really, if you watch some of the Digital Foundry videos, it didn't really come close to doing what the PS2 version did. And I think it's the same to a degree on the PC. But it seems like, the team have actually got the Dreamcast version looking like the PS2 version, which is an absolutely phenomenal achievement, really. And then you've got Vice City, which already is looking the part. But I think Vice City, it's a performance, I think, that kind of drags it down a little bit for now. And I think that's probably because they're still using a lot of the PC assets and it hasn't been optimized in terms of
Yep.
reduced geometry, less complex. I mean, obviously, when you're taking the PC assets, they are effectively the Xbox assets, which were given extra complexity and detail over and above the PlayStation 2 version. So I think that's still to come, isn't it?
Aye, the PC assets. I think the original plan was to swap them out for PS2 ones.
Yeah.
The textures. I think that was the plan, was to basically compress and strip down the size of the kind of the character models, especially, and the cars and stuff like that. And I think Frogbill had done some updates on his X page as well, like kind of before and after of like kind of car models, and saying that they'd saved X amount of performance here by using that model versus that one. So see the fact that I've said it before, like I'm in the Simulant Discord where all these developers all have their talks, mate. It's like reading the fucking Matrix. Like honestly, I read it and I don't understand it, but I'm impressed by it. It's like they're hitting it with things that I'm like, like how do you even know to look at that? Like it was the same whenever I uploaded the video for the first Wipeout build, right? And in the script for that, I said that I felt the air brakes weren't quite strong enough, and that it was probably down to the fact that the Dreamcast shoulder buttons or triggers were analog, and maybe it was looking for a digital input, similar to the PS1's L and R buttons. And I put that video, I uploaded it at like 20 minutes to 4, right? 4:30 in the Discord. G and Martin put a screenshot of the code up going, found the fucking air brakes. It's like, so he'd literally went in and found that stuff, and I actually said that to him on the Discord as well. It was like, he's in and found that, and he amended it. He enabled analog controls. The stick wasn't working at first, it was only D-pad. So they're constantly adding this stuff, these optimizations. But the GTA games, and I think that's where Vice City will benefit, is when they strip back the PC assets to probably using the PS2 ones. Not quite as sharp, or maybe not quite as detailed, but they do the job. You would need to be really. I think if you take the PS2's textures and character models, and then you output them at the Dreamcast native resolution, and you add that times 2A, like as Falco says, fuck the PS2 in his picture and his Discord avatar. It's like no jaggies here. We put times 2A on, and that's us. But aye, it's crazy that they're able just to kind of take the code of that version, the code of that version, get them working together to make this perfect kind of blend. Like the fog effects in GTA 3, man, they are beautiful. That said, the mission I did, which was the Chunky Lee Chong assassination, mate, I need to send you it and even upload it as an outtake. It's comedy, right? It needs Benny Hill music. You know how, like, he's got a car parked at each end, right? He's got a blue and a red one, right? So what I try to do is I try and park a car in front of each one and then walk in and get them, right?
Yeah.
But I didn't park it in front of the blue one. I think it was the blue one. Whatever. Right, so I've ran in, and his wee gang have all ran up to me because I've pulled my gun out. I've locked on and I'm chasing him, and I'm shooting. And his guy's no dying, man. So he gets his car. I've parked my car just like no far from it. Jumps in and I'm chasing him. So rams him a couple of times. And you know how, as you come out of the kind of main road, there's a little kind of concrete kind of road dividers.
Yeah.
Right? With grass on the top, I think it is. And there's 3 of them. Mate, he just kept driving around in a circle. Right? But it took me about 2 or 3 times of chasing him in a circle to realise he was gone in a circle. So I eventually just sat there and started laughing. Because I'm like, how's this guy expected to get away from me? He's I'm like, come on, man. So I don't know if that was a glitch, like if that's in the actual game proper. I'm like, mate, just drive straight up the hill. Why are you getting round in a circle? So suffice to say, when I captured that gameplay, I'm like, nah, I can't use that. That was like eventually I rammed him off the road and his car blew up and I passed the mission, but it was like the worst mission successful you've ever seen in your life in a Grand Theft Auto game. It was so bad, but it was funny, mate. Gave me a good laugh anyway.
I don't know, mate. I've had some absolute shockers when I've been playing those games in the past. I've never beaten for GTA 3. I keep saying to myself that now that it's on Dreamcast, I'm going to beat it on Dreamcast. But the rate of progress is so fast. I'm just like, oh, which version am I going to? When will I start? When will I say, right, that's the version. I'm locked in. Because people have already beaten both games, haven't they? Part of the testing, people have beaten Vice
Yeah,
City, Falco said, a number of times. So I think we know that those are with that one. The games are they're complete to the effect that you can play them, they're content complete, but obviously they need the optimizations. Doom 64, meanwhile, because that was that taken from a decompilation of the N64 game, or was that taken from the PC version?
I believe it was decompiled N64, but there's elements of the PC in there. Obviously, it uses the assets from the additional levels on the Steam version,
Yeah,
and that was added to that the kind of the last update. I'm not entirely sure to which degree or how much the what assets come from what. I'm sure I read on the Discord that he decompiled the N64 version, but I'm not sure whether the PC aspect of it came in with the Lost Levels, it was called, wasn't
I
it?
can't remember what it's called specifically, but I mean,
Just have a video on it, you know what I mean? I should
yeah.
know.
I mean, the thing is, like, you compare him. We're talking about two different kind of situations here. Obviously, we've got different levels of maturity of Grand Theft Auto 3 and Grand Theft Auto Vice City, but both games in beta, one version further along in optimization than the other. Both you can play from beginning to end. Doom 64, meanwhile, kind of to me represents, you know, a finished game. Now, obviously, we're talking about a game that's been ported from the Nintendo 64 as opposed to PlayStation 2, but it's going up a generation rather than going from PS to the same generation. Albeit, when you look at the Sega Dreamcast library, there are an awful lot of N64 ports of enhanced N64 games. And when you look at what Doom 64 is doing on the Dreamcast, it's absolutely phenomenal. It's incredible, and I think there's a strong argument that that may be the best way to play Doom 64, especially if you've got a mouse and a keyboard. Because the bump mapping that he's implemented on there, the level of quality and the lighting in there, the rate at which it moves, the sheer volume of options, and then you've got the wealth of content. It's yes, for my money, it's the best version of that game, and I think that just shows what a kind of the end state of some of these projects can get to. I think that's the gold standard. I think. Would you agree?
I looked up the video. It is the Lost Levels, and then it added the fan mod as well, which was knee deep in the dead. It added that, which was like a chapter one. It was called Chapter One, Knee Deep in the Dead, and obviously it's got the dynamic light. And the bump mapping on that, mate, is absolutely sensational. Like I remember the first time I seen it, and I witnessed it at the same time a fireball was thrown at me, and I'm like, I was looking, I'm going, look, that ceiling, that the rocks and that on those walls, like they look like you could touch them. It's like it might sound really daft, right? But it's that good. And whenever you see it moving at the pace it moves at, like mouse and keyboard, mate, I'd love to play it with mouse and keyboard, but I'm not buying a Dreamcast mouse and keyboard just to play that. I'm quite happy with analog stick. But I can imagine if you're like a proper Doom player, like playing that version with a mouse and keyboard, it must be damn satisfying, you know. And as we say, like Jen Martin, they just kept going and kept going and kept adding to it and putting more and more in. I think it took a bit longer than he would have liked it to. Um, that was the thing he commented on about the Wipeout port as well. That he doesn't want this one to last a year like the last one. What excites me is what is he going to move on to next? As we've said already, what's he going to tackle next?
Yeah,
But
indeed, mate.
you're right, Doom 64 on Dreamcast, people will be going, but it's on Xbox Series X. And it's like, but no, it's not got all this extra content in it.
No.
It's not, and anyone who hasn't played the Dreamcast version, like to see those 16 dynamic light sources and the bump mapping and the 60 FPS, and it's like, again, people will go, why? Why not? Like, let's think about it. Whenever you think about FPS games on Dreamcast, yeah, we had Quake 3 Arena, which was okay, but frame rate wasn't. I think frame rate was only 30 FPS on it.
Yeah.
The levels were dramatically scaled back from the PC versions. They were rebuilt, they were restructured to make them fit. And even the Dreamcast specific levels that they built to try and compensate for that, they were okay. But you look at the levels, the design in Doom 64, they're devilishly good. Secrets everywhere and wee hidden doors. And I like the fact that you can turn on all the keys in God mode and all the weapons. And you can just go straight to the best guns and just kill everything. It's like, even something like the plasma rifle that you get, man, as a player, those big blue orbs, and they see the way that they glow, they light up the room as they fire out. Oh man, it's too good.
It's the beautiful thing about Doom 64 is that I think there was kind of this view that it was a sort of port, but not really a port. It's like a side story to Doom, and I think that game itself, because of how Doom lore has evolved in recent years with the God, is it 2016 Doom now? It's 2016 that last one was it? So we've got the new one coming this year, Doom, the Dark Ages, which looks phenomenal.
The first Doom reboot was 2016.
I think so. 8 bloody years ago.
Jesus,
But yeah,
that's terrifying.
that really fleshed out the lore and gave Doom 64 its own place in history. And
Yep.
obviously, Doom has a kind of a mixed history on the official ports on Sega consoles. Got the 32X version, which I quite like the 32X version, but obviously has a lot of shortcomings in terms of the retail release. Obviously, the Doom Resurrection project, absolutely amazing what they did with the 32 export, and when they've enhanced it with the MD plus with the audio and everything, oh my god, I really need to get something to play it on the Mega CD, because I'd love to do that. But then you know seeing that game, there's so much that kind of comes to fruition there, because you and I both remember when we're reading through those issues of official Sega Saturn magazines back in the day, and one of the things that Richard Ledbetter of Digital Foundry, who was the editor at the time, was saying was, bump mapping and all these light sources. And we never really got to see it in any retail games. And the fact that J.M. Martins has implemented that in this version of Doom is just absolutely phenomenal. And I think that's part of what makes seeing us get to this point now where we are at this level of maturity with Dreamcast Homebrew. It's just so satisfying. It's because, you know, this is what we didn't see. This is what the machine was truly capable of. This is why they're all so impressive. This is what we could have had. It's like Jim Bowen, isn't it? Here's what you could have won.
There you go. Take your plastic bully and your £100. There you go. Up the road, there, lad. Let's take a look at what you could have won.
But yeah, it's almost vindicating to see stuff like bump mapping in Doom 64 used to such a degree, and see Grand Theft Auto 3. And when people are asking why, I think that's a big reason why, because this machine was capable of so much more.
Mate, you've just my mind's going away thinking about the prize board now. And Bullseye, and one. You'll never have to worry about the walls again with that lovely, tasty bump mapping. And two. If you like lights, so we've got you covered. We've got 16 dynamic light sources. And Bully's special prize is Grand Theft Auto 3 running at 30 FPS at 640 by 480. There we go.
Oh,
there you go.
There we go, mate. But it does
we
feel...
we did see bump mapping once in a retail game, apparently.
Which game was that?
It was a coin on Shenmue.
Oh, okay. It does feel like, I think when we first, I think when we first moved to YouTube, maybe we were first having this discussion around, Dreamcast potential. And at the time, I think we'd just come out of that really strong Sega Saturn homebrew period where we'd had the Unreal demo, which was,
Yes.
oh my God, that was mind blowing to see that playing on a Sega Saturn at the time. Again, with those big open environments, the light sourcing and that advanced game playing on Sega Saturn. We had games like Cube Cat and Cold Case coming through, just games that were visually impressive. And I think we were kind of saying at the time, you know, we're seeing the limits of the Sega Saturn really be pushed now. When are we going to see the Dreamcast limits get pushed? And I think that was kind of where a lot of those that feeling that we're describing, these are great games that are being developed by the indie scene, but at the same time, what you're saying, the Dreamcast is capable of so much more. But now we're finally seeing that. By the same token, it feels like Sega Saturn homebrew is still pushing on even further and further. I don't know, mate. Does it feel like there is a kind of a little rivalry between those two areas, and maybe will they push each other to new heights?
Aye, it's like, I mean, the Mega Drive scene, in Brazil, with like Pyron and Master Linkway and Mauro,
That scene
those
is
guys.
insane. There's like a
Oh, mate,
website that's got its own Mega Drive release list because there's so many.
aye, Rio Gamer as well. These guys are just pumping out quality stuff on the Mega Drive, but I think they kind of exist in their own little kind of not bubble, so to speak, but they do their own kind of thing. But I think the Saturn and Dreamcast stuff, it's not so much a rivalry. I think it'll be like a friendly rivalry, but you see a wee bit of crossover. Like Derek does a bit in both.
Yeah,
You've got Nisan who, he's obviously part of the GTA 3 team, but he, as I said earlier, did the Shenmue quiz stuff as well on Saturn. So I mean, what would be good is that if the skills, obviously it's different development tools, but any kind of experience that these guys are picking up as coders and developers can only be a good thing.
yeah,
So, maybe it'll open their eyes to new ideas or possibilities, or a light bulb will go off whenever like we've done that on the Dreamcast. Have a look at the Saturn, and they might see something that a Saturn only homebrew developer might not have. They might spot something, or that's the exciting thing. It's just the fact that there's so many people that are. It feels as if like there's just so much knowledge out there just now, and they're all learning at the same time. So they're just all soaking this in like sponges, mate. It's just like, and you can see them evolving like that. That's the scary thing. Um, Also the recent kind of Saturn homebrew competitions underway as well. There's Jay Baretta's back with that Micro Machines V3 style
yeah.
game as well. I have to say, Jay, I'm disappointed you never kept working on Cold Case, mate. I need more Cold Case. It's too good. I need more Cold Case in my life. Not the TV show, the game, but hopefully one day that I'd love to see that get finished. That's one game I would love to see get finished. Like it might be too much for Jay Barretta to do a full game on his own, but could a team assemble to make something like that? We've seen that there's new tools out there to make development on Saturn homebrew even easier.
Yeah.
So could people come together to help him finish that off? That's the thing. But I think at one point it felt like the Mega Drive scene was doing its own thing and was really strong, and the Saturn was just going strength to strength to strength, and was really pushing that innovation in terms of homebrew. And suddenly it's like the Dreamcast communities went, like the old hold my beer,
Yeah.
like. But it's amazing to see because we knew that potential was in that box. We knew it could do these games. That's the thing. Like no machine is on the market for like 2.5 years globally and gets killed off and isn't pushed. I think there's people out there that have said, "Oh, Shenmue 2 was pushing Dreamcast to its absolute limits." And I'm like, I don't think so. It's like you think about what PS1 did in year 5 compared to year 1. Even look at what the Saturn was doing in '98 compared to '95. You
Look at the
know,
look at the PS2, it started off with stuff like the bouncer, and that
the bouncer.
and even you even compare something like play God of War on the PlayStation 2 and you think that's it. That's it. Topped out there, and then you go to God of War 2, and it is miles beyond. That God of War 1, that console struggles. God of War 2, it's so much better visually, and it plays a lot better. And you just think, that's the sort of maturity that we didn't get with Shenmue 2. Shenmue 2, I think you could probably see in there that they probably rushed elements of it. They didn't get the time to fully optimize it. And if we got a Shenmue 3 on the Dreamcast, that would have been, again, another a graphical step up. So yeah, we never got to see that potential at the time. And hopefully, I think we're seeing it now. And as you say, there is a lot of crossover with all. We are so very fortunate as Sega fans to have so many talented and passionate people within the community that are putting the time and effort into to create this stuff, on all platforms. And it's been amazing to see it on the Dreamcast. And yeah, just as you say, mate, it's got us dreaming. It's got us dreaming. And I think probably a good place to kind of lead in is what could be next. I thought from my perspective, I'd love to see Outrun 2 on the Dreamcast. Um, and it all comes back to who was it? Someone was sharing the other day that there was a Sumo Digital developer who said, and someone said, "Oh, we had Outrun 2006 on the PSP. Could we get it on the Dreamcast?" And they said, "Yeah, well, the PSP got 32 megabytes of RAM. Sega Dreamcast has less than that, so it'd be a struggle." And it's like, well, where have we heard that before? Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
was GTA 3, and I did get thinking, out of everything, I think we'd like to see the dream would be seeing something like Virtua Fighter 4 Scud Race on the Sega Dreamcast, but they come with their own much bigger challenges because if I remember correctly, I think even though Naomi was basically a Dreamcast in the arcade, the fact that it had such a bigger RAM pool meant that games still effectively had to be ported. They weren't just kind of a lift and drop. It wasn't just
Aye.
drag the files over. There was all sorts of other optimizations in there. So, and obviously Scud Race is different architecture would require a completely rewrite, probably build up from scratch unless someone actually got their hands on the demo. Virtua Fighter 4 would require, a full backport, and it would be a full porting probably from the ground up again. Outrun 2, you got the PC version. If that could be
Yes.
if that could be decompiled, nips and tucks, I'd love to see that one day. That would be I'd love to see that.
See, whenever you said that, I'm sitting here thinking PC version, and the PC version has already been hacked apart and modded.
Yeah.
There's umpteen mods for that to remove like kind of censorship on character designs and just various graphical tweaks. So that framework might already be in place. That if the PC version has been hacked to pieces, could that be, backported onto Dreamcast? Could they take, again, could they take the PC code, you know, recompile it, rip it apart, rebuild it, and maybe take elements of the PSP version or the PS2 version in terms of textures and maybe I don't know downscale assets and to get them to fit to get them to run. Who knows, mate? It'd be amazing if they could do it.
Yeah. Because obviously today there's untold amounts of ways that you could play Outrun 2. Obviously all on old systems apart from PC because Sega just, I don't know, just neglecting the greatest arcade racing game of all time, arguably. But you know,
There's
seeing it
we-
where
we've got a Sega Rally game on Dreamcast,
yeah.
mate.
Okay. But Sega arguably, that's why I said arguably. Sega Rally and Outrun 2 is
I
close.
like that. I
Close for
like
me.
that. We okay.
It's like that enemy Murphy Delirious. Okay.
You don't need to talk about no Sega Rally.
Well, obviously Sega are happy to neglect Outrun 2 and Sega Rally, but you, it does feel like the Outrun 2 should have been come to Dreamcast Even though it was Chihiro, you've got to think that there was a spark way back in 2001, maybe that someone wanted to resurrect Outrun, bring it to modern hardware. And obviously, if the Dreamcast was still going, it would have come to Dreamcast. Would have been on Naomi or Naomi 2, and it would have come home to Dreamcast. But yeah, that's my wish list, mate. I imagine from your perspective, it would be seeing Virtua Fighter 4 where it's meant
Aye,
to be.
aye. I remember ages ago, I took the Japanese PS2 case and I put the orange. By the way, the Virtua Fighter 4 case in Japan is stunning. Like, it's like the PAL one is so cheesy in comparison, but the Japanese one is absolute fire. It's like, oh, but you know, I took the Japanese one and I put the orange the corner logo up, and oh man, it just looked so right. It was like it just worked. I'm like, oh. And I refuse to believe that Virtua Fighter 4, Outrun 2, Jet Set Radio Future, Gun Valkyrie, Panzer Dragoon Orta, all these games, I refuse to believe that they were hastily made or ported over to Xbox and PS2. Obviously PS2 get VF4 and Xbox get the rest of them, but like these all had to be potential Dreamcast games. Just you look at the time frame, like either they were really, really fast at getting these, shipped and out the door and getting them coded and getting them ready, or else there was some element of them already starting to bring these into a home version. But
Yeah.
people say that VF4 couldn't be done on Dreamcast, and I really disagree with that, like wholeheartedly. Like the PS2 has to make cutbacks to fit it, but the PS2 makes cutbacks because it's trying to port a game from hardware it has no relation to. Whereas Naomi 2, yeah, it's got the more RAM and more VRAM, but there's already a kind of familial link there. There's already it's like you've got baby Naomi, then you've got Naomi, then Naomi 2. Like baby Naomi's a Dreamcast. It's like the most basic version, but it's still a family of devices. So you would think there would be an ability to scale it down, like Power Stone and Dead or Alive 2. They look nigh identical to the Naomi versions, but it's just very clever downscaling of it to fit it
Yeah.
onto the lesser RAM of the Dreamcast. I think if you take some of the stage elements, make them 2D, like the PS2 does, you maybe simplify the textures, make the fighters maybe a wee bit smaller. I don't know. But I still think there's a way that Dreamcast could have done VF4. And I think VF4 on Dreamcast would have looked a damn sight better than it does on PS2. And again, don't get me wrong, PS2 version is a great looking game in places. Jackie's stage with the roof, as I mentioned on last week's PS2 show or 2 weeks ago, that rooftop stage with the helicopter with the spotlight looks amazing, but it really highlights the Jaggies. When the lights hit you, it's like, oh my God, fucking cut my finger. It's like, no, but the Dreamcast version would have been smooth moves.
Yeah. Yeah, it would have been. I would have felt at home on the Dreamcast, especially after
Aye.
we got teased with the Shenmue 4, Virtua Fighter 4 passport and preview discs in Shenmue 2. But yeah, a real shame, mate. But yeah, I think we'll see where the homebrew. It does feel like the sky's the limit with these guys. They're so talented, so passionate. Much like the rest of the homebrew teams out there, the ones that that are working wonders on the Sega Saturn now with the homebrew challenges, the deluge of constant Mega Drive stuff, and obviously people will see stuff that we put on the channel all the time. In the last few weeks we had the Mega Drive port of Final Fight, we had the Capcom versus SNK 2. Obviously that's a translation rather than kind of a bit ground up homebrew, but an absolutely fantastic. And that's another one. That's one even though it's not building kind of a game from the ground up, just the sheer effort to go into translating a game to that scale,
Mm-hmm.
even back in the day, Capcom didn't bother translating, but essentially 7/8 of the text, and Derek and all those translators have come in as a team and have put in a shift there to do that. So there was that. There's the Vice City Grand Theft Auto 3 stuff. It's just, we are truly blessed to have these people creating such incredible pieces of software, and mate, I think it's just it can be said time and time again. We love playing our old Sega games, but the fact that these people are bringing new titles to these consoles, it just feels like Christmas keeps coming again and again.
And you know what, mate? I think we're really lucky that we started doing this at the time we did. Because like as I say, we're we call a COVID podcast.
Yeah.
We started during lockdown, you know, April 2020, started as just a podcast. And, to think what the scene was like then, you think of the mods and the homebrew stuff that we've seen, we're really, like, really privileged and lucky that we've just come into this at a time where we've managed to just, you know, they talk about, the old surfing a wave kind of
Yeah.
analogy. We came on just at the start, nice calm waters, but riding that wave up, mate, and we have just seen it getting wilder and wilder all the time. Um, and just you wonder, when's it going to peak? We're only at the beginning. That's the thing. We are literally just at the beginning. These guys are going to get better. They're going to learn more. They're going to unlock more potential. They're going to find more they can do. They're still always finding. You look at Falco's X page, like I love it whenever I read he's really excited tweets that he's found some other way to boost performance from something to add some kind of effect or to get an extra couple of cycles out the SH4s. It's just and to read that palpable excitement that he's got whenever that happens,
Yeah, I love it.
it's amazing. It's like it's just so genuine and infectious, and as people who love that system, it's great to see. It's what in a really unprecedented time just now when it comes to homebrew and Sega systems. I think it's like you look around the retro scene, no other systems have got these kind of talented people working on their old consoles. Like PlayStation Retro, I think, is neglected purely because it's still a live platform. Like I don't think there's any kind of passion to go back the way from people who have like PS5 or PS4. I think like a retro game might come up on like PS Plus or something. Oh, we'll try that for old time's sake, but there's no real like you've had the X Station mod, obviously, for running SD card games or running games off an SD card, but there's no burgeoning homebrew scene. There's no innovations there that you're seeing. Look at N64, look at GameCube. You look around, like even at PS2, there's nothing like the Sega scene is an absolute hotbed of just innovation, and I think a lot of it comes because they're all fans of the system. They're all fans of the systems, and some of them are a lot younger, but some of them are of the ages of us, and I think there's a little bit of that kind of old stubbornness from back in the day, that old kind of that fight that we had as, Saturn owners or Dreamcast owners, that we knew we weren't the most popular system and we knew that we weren't the one in the fight, but we backed them all the same and we enjoyed it. And I think there's a bit of fight in them to prove a point. I think that's what a lot of this is. What do you mean you can't do transparencies on the Saturn? I'll fucking show you what we can do on Saturn. What do you mean you can't run Grand Theft Auto 3 on a Dreamcast? I'll get it up and running. It's like they're enjoying proving, decades of naysayers wrong. And the exciting thing is, mate, is they're going to continue to do that and then some.
I know you look at stuff like Callisto OS and then the recent, news around Sega Saturn tools and making development. It's like a lot of the Sega Saturn scene, those guys saying, a lot of the guys came into it saying, well, I wanted to, people said that creating games for the Sega Saturn was a challenge and I wanted to see what that was about. And you look at what these people have done and you're right, mate, it feels like we're at a level of maturity. And yet with the development of new tools, this could very much just be the tip of the iceberg. So, wow, just, you know, incredible, exciting stuff. And thanks again to, everyone that's involved in this stuff because, it's just a pleasure to enjoy it. Playing our favorite games and our favorite consoles is one thing, but discovering new stuff, is extra magical. But mate, I think that'll do us for this one. But yeah, I'd love to hear what our viewers, what our listeners think. You know, what do you think of this explosion in Dreamcast advancement in homebrew games? You know, what's your favorite homebrew project so far, and what games would you love? You know, what's your dream game to come to the Dreamcast in the homebrew scene? Let us know. You can get in contact via the Sega Guys Discord or via the Radio Sega Discord or in the comments below. If you want to be extra mega, you can become a member with a bunch of awesome perks from as little as 99p. And if you're an Akira All Access member, you get your name read out as a special thanks, just as James is doing right now.
Our Akira All Access members for this week's show are G-Man, Stiff Peaks, Mikowski, Craig Williamson, Sega Saturn, Shiro, Resident SD, P-Wall, Peter 007, Andy Mackey, Nick Tulloch, Greg Matthews, David Owens, Tom Thumb, Kaiju Leviathan. We have Nelson Serino, and we have a new member of the Panzer Dragoon Premium Club. We have Daniel, and he's got Kiryu-san as his avatar, so that's a good choice, my man. But thank you to all of our members and subscribers for your continued support. And just to echo what you said, mate, you know, a massive thank you. I don't know if any of the guys that were spoken about will watch this episode, but, you know, Derek Pascarella, Falco Gurgis, Skimp, Espero, you know, all these guys, Nisan, the guys that are working tirelessly on, you know, if anybody's name I've missed out, I think it's a guy called Phenom as well that's in there. There's just so many. Thank you to all of you for what you do for the community, for what you're bringing us, and for your tireless work and continuing to push that envelope and learn more to give us even better experiences. So thank you.
Yes, thank you guys. Thank you for giving us the pleasure of covering your amazing work. And viewers, listeners, thank you so much for staying with us, for tuning in, for watching, liking, subscribing, however you support us. It's truly appreciated. We're on our way to 12,000 subscribers, which is absolutely unbelievable. Stay tuned because I think we're moving into series season 6 now, mate. So well, it's insane that we've gone through 5 years of doing this. Long may it continue.
It's just crazy, isn't it, mate? Like 5 years, like that's us. We're in the month. That was it. Was it August 19th? I think. No, April 19th. I think it was. You know, and we started crazy. And then we had the old joke about, I need to knock this in the head, mate, because we've just not got time for this. And we went away for 9 months, and then we came back and went, let's start a YouTube channel. It's crazy. It is. I mean, we're kicking the arse off a 12K. You know, I just can't believe the way the channel's exploded, and it's all just into you guys supporting us and tuning in and getting involved in the comments and sharing it, and for the community embracing what we do. It seems to be what we do resonates with people. So long may that continue. But thank you very much, everyone.
Yes, thank you so much. So until next time, we will see you on the Sega side.
Sega!